Welcome to this new live mentalism conversation. I am very grateful to have the opportunity to talk with the living legend, a master, a friend, a brother, and I know and I can predict openly that we will have a fantastic conversation. So please, a virtual applause for Richard Osterlind. How are you, my friend?
I'm great, my friend. Thank you so much for asking me. I've been looking forward to this ever since we scheduled this. I admire you greatly, and I look forward to having a nice conversation with you, especially when we don't set up parameters. We just say we'll talk and see what happens, and that's
Exactly.
my favorite way to do things. So
Yeah, yeah, flowing. I can sense, Richard, in your work, in your creative approach to several of your ideas, that indeed kind of that flowing, that freedom is kind of present. How do you, in your work, observe freedom or that type of flowing energy?
well, okay. And I was thinking about this today, so I'm glad you asked me this.
Of course, right?
Of
Part of the
course.
business.
Um, when you read many mentalism books, they talk about acting, and the old line, a magician is an actor playing the part of a magician, that type of thing. And I was thinking about this, and if I had to act, I would be a terrible actor. For instance, if somebody came to me and said, "We want you to play the part of Svengali, and so that's what you're going to have to do," and I would be awful at that. I mean, I'm not an actor. Um, so instead, what I have is a belief system. Okay, and I believe totally in myself as a mentalist and in what I'm doing. So I'm just me. And since I believe that, then I can act freely. I don't have to worry about rules of acting, and you should do this and you should do that and act this way and act this way. I just act normally as myself with these abilities, which when I'm performing, I totally believe in. Okay. To the point where if somebody came up to me, for instance, and said, "Richard, I think you're just doing tricks," I would be shocked. In the same way that I would be shocked if somebody came up to me and said, "Your name's not really Richard Osterlind." I would look at him like, "Well, what are you talking about?" And that's the same. And I've talked about this in my books, and Making Magic Real, Making Real Magic, other books that I've written, that if the power of belief, if you can believe in yourself, it's striking how forceful that can be in others, even people who are skeptical. Uh, it can it's just powerful. So, but the thing is, again, I don't think about that stuff. I just think about, this is what I can do as a mentalist, and then I do it, and just act who I am. So, and that's a freedom. That's a
Yeah.
freedom. So even though I have, of course, plots, and I know here I'm going to do this, and here I'm going to bring this person over here, and I'm basically going to say this or that, it's always loose. I've always talked about not abusing spectators and treating them the way you should treat them. And because of that, when I get somebody up, if they say something to me, I listen and I react. And that sometimes puts the whole plot in a different direction slightly. And as opposed to if I just had a line or lines to use and one after another, then it's rude to the person because you're just treating them like a prop. And it doesn't come across, you come across as rude. I would rather, I'm I have my routines, but my routines are totally flexible. And if it goes somewhere a little different because of a spectator, well, then I go with it because, again, I'm just believing in myself. And that's the way I am in real life. So I'm not any different performing.
And I remember a moment in one of your legendary videos in which everyone decades ago started to learn, right? The Richard Osterlind and Easy to Master and all those beautiful videos. In one of those performances, I remember that you were doing like a card revelation. I don't really remember the specific piece, but I remember that you moved the deck and one card like float, like quote unquote accident, right? Yeah, and
Right.
it was the sort of card. And when I was a early student of mentalism, I saw that moment and I realized, you know, accidents are opportunities that we can utilize in the creation of a mystery. And obviously you didn't plan that, but that happened and you almost act like, yeah, of course. So how do you remember that experience?
I do remember that thing exactly because, yeah, it was a question of after the first, I think the first was very simple. I've used it so often where I just get a break and know the card above my break. And then I just flip it and just, it pauses for a split second.
Yeah.
And I, think of a card and I can hear the pop and it would seem obvious, but people don't. And then continue. And then at that point, I don't know if I do a pass or a cut, something to control the card to where I want it. But in this particular case, I was sloppy, like I am so often, and the card flew out. And it landed face up, and I knew that was the card. And so at that moment, I just said, well, is that your card? And the way I said it, is that your card, just implied that I expected that to fly out like that. And then, oh, wow, and then I did it again the right way after, if I'm not mistaken. But you're right. In mentalism, so often that kind of thing, you have to learn to go with it. That kind of thing happens a lot. When I would do trade shows and I would do my center tear for people over and over again. And sometimes I would put the line and say, okay, put a name on the line and hand them the pen and start talking to somebody else and glance back and they have not covered it. And I can see it. And so when that happens, I just automatically, as soon as I see it, I turn back away and I say, okay, if you're done, close it up. And then I continue without ever touching the paper or let them rip it or whatever. And that really cements home the fact I don't have to touch it, but or maybe pass my hand over, whatever I did. But that kind of thing, or if you're doing a Q&A act, and it's the same thing, can be verbally. If you're talking and you say something and you hit, and the ability to slide right into that and continue and until it becomes uncanny, until what you are saying has absolutely nothing to do with whatever they may have written down or whatever method you're using at the moment. So yeah, I remember, I think it was Bob Cassidy used to talk about jazz mentalism, where you kind of just make up things as you go based on your knowledge. And to me, most of my mentalism is jazz mentalism. I know where I'm going, but I'm always ready to go this way or that way. I'm a musician, and when you play a jazz number, you may start out with a song, the song, but pretty soon it takes off in a different direction and you're playing with the band and somebody does this or somebody does that and you pick up on it and go with it that way or go with it that way. And before you know it, you're swinging. And to me, that's mentalism. If you're doing it right, you start to swing.
Yeah, that's the idea, to start to feel the vibrations and improvisation, which is also part both of jazz and performance. And
Yeah.
sometimes when we talk about scripts and maybe our plan and organization for the performance, we kind of forget that having a script is not the contrary to allow ourselves to be free, to improvise, to catch what is the moment and impact that experience. So it's both, right? It's understanding what we need to communicate, and during the moment of performance, understanding how to apply those communications into the space. And when we are sensitive to different aspects of the context, we can really reach those levels of realness that mentalism, especially when I see you perform, you reach completely. And I remember that a few years ago, we met in a physical way in Buenos Aires, Argentina, right? And one of my
Wonderful.
surprises, yes, it was a beautiful time. And one of my surprises is that when I realized that this legend, Richard Osterlind, was performing in English for a Spanish talking audience, and the act is going strong. So that's in a way, because normally as a native Spanish talking, I normally hear mentalism in English most of the time. So that was the first time that I experienced something in reverse, because I saw someone using the language of English, but most importantly, it was the language of mentalism, right? Because it's kind of universal of the mystery. So how it was for you that experience to perform in that moment?
I I I remember the first time I had that kind of situation. I had a show in Beijing,
Nice.
and I performed for the mayor of Beijing and 600 Chinese businessmen, none of whom spoke English.
Yeah.
So I had an interpreter. And before I began my stage show, they asked me to walk around and do a few things up close in this huge room. And I would put a piece of paper down and I would say to the person, not to the interpreter, but to the person, I'd say, draw a simple design on the paper and fold it. And then she would translate like that. And and then I would take it, and I forget if I ripped it. I don't think I even ripped it. It was I think I used Millard's Acetus Novus. And I would just take it and hold it like this for a second. And then I would take a piece of paper and say, I'm getting this, and maybe this, maybe this. And she wasn't translating that part. I was just talking to them in English. I'd say, I'm getting maybe this, maybe this, I think this over here. And that, it didn't matter that it was English and they didn't speak English.
Yeah.
It was obvious what I was doing with them. And again, because when you say maybe this, well, that you don't need language for this. It's like,
Yeah.
that speaks for itself and it's universal. So I had no problem in Buenos Aires with a lot of the Spanish speaking only mentalists that we had there. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I think it's quaint, the idea that you have a mind reader who's reading people's minds
Yeah.
in a different language.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I Pablo, you know that I'm a big fan of movies. I love movies. I in the other room, I have bookcases full of movies, and I love to watch them, the same one sometimes over and over again, and and good movies give you a special feeling. Forget the plot, what kind of movie, comedy, action movie, whatever. When you know it's good and there's good acting and a good plot and everything, you know it, and it's elevating. And I think the same thing can be said of mentalism. It's not necessarily how impossible something is or how flashy or anything else. If it's good, the essence of mentalism, people know it. They know that that's good. That's good mentalism. Just like if I saw a good juggler, if I saw a good fire eater, I don't care, whatever. If they're good, you enjoy it. You say, wow, this is good, And so again, getting back to the freedom, not being tied into scripts and everything else that limits you, but instead open it up. So that's why when I perform on stage, I never stay on stage. I go into the audience. I want to be with the people all around me and do my thing. I just want it to be, a nice big room, happy and performing for everybody. And that's, I think, part of being good. It's just making everybody feel good, feel happy, feel like
beautiful,
witnessing something important.
Yeah, and when you say that, Richard, that mentalism can be good, that reminds me of this philosophical concept of the Platonic values. And Plato said that we can find what is beautiful, what is good, and what is truth, right? So in mentalism, we can also observe beautiful mentalism, for example, in images that we are offering in the audience. For example, I know that you do beautiful psychokinetic work with spoons, right? And that image is powerful. So we can find beauty in that. And we can also explore, for example, the concept of the truth. We are being truthful with what we are saying, right? We need to, quote unquote, deceive people, or we need to lie, right? So that opens also interesting observations about what we do and how we do it.
Yes, and as you know from my books and stuff, I have some strong feelings about that too, about if everything I did was just a lie, and I wouldn't feel very good about myself. In the Lord of the Rings trilogy, now most people have seen the 3 movies. By any chance, did you read the 3 books?
No.
Okay. In volume 1, The Fellowship of the Ring, there's an interesting character. There's a chapter called Tom Bombadil. I mentioned it in one of my books earlier. And they didn't put it in the movie, so you won't see it in the movie. But there's a chapter called Tom Bombadil. And in the movie, Frodo and his companions, well, one of them, I think maybe Sam, gets caught in a tree, and the tree is sucking them in. And all of a sudden, Tom Bombadil comes along and he smacks the tree. He says, "Let him go," And it turns out this forest is old forest is the realm of Tom Bombadil and his lady. And it's interesting because if you study Tolkien at all, you see that character is sort of an enigma. He appears in different stories occasionally, and then without having a direct connection with necessarily the story, which is why they were able to leave it out of the movie. But in the book, Frodo, he asked to see the ring, the magic ring, and he takes it and he pops it on his finger, and he doesn't disappear, right? And then he takes it and he flips it up and down a few times, and then he makes it disappear. And Frodo kind of freaks out, and then he makes it reappear, and he gives it back to him like that, which in itself is kind of a cool part because it's like magic, right? It's just like regular magic. But later, when they're having this council of Elrond, and they're trying to determine what to do with this ring because it's evil, they got to destroy it. And somebody suggests, well, we should maybe give it to Tom Bombadil because it didn't seem to have any effect on him, And maybe it was Gandalf said, no, he would forget about it and lose it. He wouldn't care. He's master of his own realm. And that's all he wants to be, is master of his own realm. And I thought long and hard about it. I said, that's what I try to be. Master of my realm, master of this world that I live in. Okay. Now, as you know, I'm a very spiritual person, but my mentalism, okay, I think it touches people because I think we all have a spiritual nature in us, and that's part of us. But I don't draw upon a spiritual nature. I use what I have. I am a master. I try to be a master of my own small universe here. That's why when people ask me, how do you do it? I just say, I use my normal senses in an extra special way. And it's not double talk. Some people think I'm just in double talk, trying to not say anything. But really, that's exactly what I try to do. I try to use my own senses in a very extra special way to create mystery. And when you think about it, I mean, besides gimmicks and sleights and center tears and peaks and all that, there are plenty of things that we do as mentalists that are not those kind of things, like memory work. It's you use your mind in a special way, an extra special way. If you do contact mind reading, which I love to do, that happens. You're using your normal senses, but in an extra special way. If you talk to somebody and do a code read or tell them about themselves, once again, using your normal senses in an extra special way. And there are other things too, of course. And so, that's what's fascinating about mentalism. I think there's so many aspects of it, and so much of it is absolutely real and fascinating. Yeah. And even those parts that you might say is a trick, and well, I'm sorry, when I perform, it's real, Exactly. You mentioned the bending, the spoon bending. Yeah. I believe it's happening. When I try to teach that, I try to tell people in my mind what I see when a force comes out of my hand that strikes that metal and melts it over. That's what's happening here. And it's happening here with such stark realism that other people see it and it becomes real for them too. Yeah. And I love mentalism, Pablo. I love all the different aspects of it. And I think there's all kinds of crossovers in real life. I mean, I think people who are who are leaders, natural leaders, who they say have charisma, it all ties in with this type of thing. It all ties in with their belief systems, how they feel about themselves, how they feel about life, how they, they feel about happiness and how we view everything. I think that's all part of it, The mentalist comes on stage. He's a special person. He's special. You can see as soon as he comes out on stage, he's special. And we want to be around special people. I want to be around you, Pablo, because you're special. You can do special things.
You are very special as well.
And so, yeah, I mean, who doesn't? I mean, people. So many people live a drab life, and they have nothing that is special.
There's no mystery. There is no astonishment, and there is no appreciation of the magic of life, right? Because reality is this, right? And we can create a new reality that is as real as normal reality. And even though we know internally that, yeah, we are using techniques of mentalism, that doesn't erase the realness of the experience. And from you, my friend, I learned that in your Principles of Mentalism. Is a book that I love that because I truly start to get what you are saying in that book, that we are creating something real. And of course, it's a method, but it's not just about the gimmick or the trick, quote unquote, but everything that we do in performance is a cause that is creating the final effect of the experience. So we can do real experiences. That's kind of the point in my view as well.
Uh, yeah, and thank you for mentioning that. I, uh, I don't know if it was in that book or some other book, but I tell a story about I read in a hypnotism book. The hypnotist told a person who was hypnotized, okay, I want you to walk across the room. There's nothing in the room. Just walk from one side to the other. And the person did it. And then he took a chair and he put the chair down in the middle of the room and said, okay, walk back. There's nothing in the room. Walk back. And the person came back and walked around the chair. And the hypnotist said, and the hypnotist said to him, why did you walk around the chair? And the person said, what chair?
Ooh.
And,
Beautiful.
and the point was, you can believe two different things at the same time. I can remember as a little boy when I grew up in Bridgeport before we moved out of there, which was, kind of a not a great place, okay? But anyways, but I used to love the Lone Ranger. And I would have my gun and I would be galloping around and I would be shooting the bad guys and whatever. And for me, it was real. Even though I knew it wasn't real, still, it was real. Children can have a reality. Even if they know it's not real, they can have the reality, excuse me, and believe it. My little granddaughter has all these outfits from Disney characters and dresses up. Do you have anybody like that who does that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And they become, it's real. They're a real fairy princess, or they're a real Belle, or they're a real Frozen, or whatever. They become that person. And of course, they know it's not real, but at the same time, it is real.
Yeah. I feel that children have this appreciation for both realities, and both realities are real, and there is no contradiction. And sometimes when we grow up, we become this ego-centered mind that only accepts what is material, right? And that's why we now forget the spiritual nature of everything, and we miss the point in that everything at the end is spiritual, and we can just feel the material, which is also real, but that doesn't negate the other type of reality, right?
Yes, by all means. And Pablo, I'm a Christian, but I don't walk around trying to preach to people or anything like that. So, but occasionally something will come up in the course of the conversation. And I remember being at a convention one time, and a person asked me where in Kentucky I live. And I explained to them the main route is Route 75 that runs through Kentucky. And I explained the exit they would get off to come to my house. And I said, it's the same exit as the Ark Encounter. And they said, what's that? I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's pretty amazing. The fellow built a life-size Noah's Ark, and it's pretty fascinating to go there. But anyways, as soon as I mentioned that, he wanted to attack me. Okay. And I remember thinking, why would you care? Why attack me? I'm not going to say anything more about it. I'm going to talk about something else. But that wasn't good. He wanted to attack me when I guess I mentioned I'm a Christian. Well, now he wanted to come after me for that. And I thought, well, what is the driving force in some people to make them want to do that?
Mm.
You know, if they think it's ridiculous what I believe in, fine. If somebody came up to me and said to me, I believe kangaroos are a god and I worship them, I would probably look at them and say, whoa, okay. And then I would talk about something, but that's not the case, you see.
Mm.
It's anger almost.
Mm.
And I wonder what is the driving force that makes people, some people, be that way. You know, it's a mystery to me. You know,
Yeah.
I think I have the answers, but anyways, um, so in the same way, I think you get some people when you do your show and you want to create really mystery, wonderful mystery. You have some people who have lost such. They've lost such sight of the spiritual nature of life. They rebel.
Mm.
They rebel. They can't stand to see someone create something that looks impossible. They can't stand to see someone who creates something that's mystical. Everything to them must be solid, like a rock, and three-dimensional. And anything else out of that is folly, and they can't deal with it, and they have to attack it.
Mm.
So you know that's an interesting concept too, you know, because there are
Yeah.
people of that. I've met people in the course of my performing life that really get mad at any kind of mystery entertainer. And it's
Yeah.
like, I've never said anything other
Yeah.
than I'm here to do a show, you know, but
And
wow.
yeah, we can see also that in this interaction between a performer and an audience, the audience starts to dissolve the individuality of each one and they become united as an audience. So sometimes I feel that also some people, they feel like rejection for this notion of unity. So if we observe performance, it's kind of like that. The mentalist or the magician or the musician invites the audience to enjoy his or her art form and basically to become one. So for some people, for sure, that idea is not accepted because we can label as hate sometimes, right, or division or discrimination and so on. So the performance becomes this moment of congregation, of unification and putting our mind literally in the phenomena that is happening. And it's kind of fascinating because each one is also having their own inner experience about what they are observing. For some people, they are watching good tricks, right? And in my experience, I remember clearly an experience after a TV apparition years ago. And one camera guy said, "Oh, a very good trick. Thank you." Okay. And another lady approached me and she was asking me to heal his son and so on. So and we can see that there are very two different experiences from one moment. So that's also fascinating.
It is. And you're right that the even though you have the different experiences, they do form one whole
Yeah.
with the audience, you know, because I'm sure you know, you win an audience over and then they react so much better to things. They applaud better and they go crazier, you know, when you do something. And so that, you know, that's comes where the reverse can happen too. You can turn off the audience and then the audience doesn't want anything to do with you.
Yeah.
Um, do you do any hypnotism
Yeah.
yourself, Pablo? Yes, okay. On stage or just
Yeah.
uh,
No, just for therapy, but on a stage, not directly like hypnosis, but more like a type of addition to the mentalism. For example,
oh,
before a procedure or something like that.
okay. I don't often do hypnotism anymore, but I used to in my career. I would do college shows where you have a bunch of chairs and you invite people on stage and you hypnotize them and you know, I was always a classy hypnotist, okay? I never did obnoxious things. I was never, I always looked upon it as a very fascinating art that you should respect and do classy things. But in the initial stage, when you're trying to hypnotize everybody, if you know you have choose the people that you think would make the best subjects and work with them first, and then that becomes contagious with the rest of the group, and then the whole group becomes like that. Whereas if you have a bad experience with the first person and they laugh and don't get hypnotized or some, that also becomes contagious with the whole group, and now your work is really difficult. I've heard stories, you know, from friends of mine who had to basically say, I'm sorry, but it doesn't seem to be working tonight, and leave the stage, because that's what happened. It's something happened, and the whole group, it turned the whole group around, and nobody could be hypnotized. And in the same way, I think the same thing can happen with our show. You know, we can do what you were saying earlier. We can create a unity with the whole audience, and they love everything you're doing and can really appreciate it and get into it. Or you can destroy that, you know, in so many ways. You know, people who, I don't know, I never swear in my show. And I've seen people, you know, they think maybe it's harmless, but I can see they'll swear and it turns off groups of people in their show. And then that becomes contagious. It lowers your class. So all of a sudden, the audience doesn't think they're seeing somebody really, really great performer. Now it's just a guy from down the road or something like that. All these things, you know. So again, I always like shortcuts. And to me, if your mental state is good, if you respect the audience and care about them and don't want to say or do anything that can hurt anybody in any way, and your goal is to give them a good time and show them amazing things that they'll remember forever. If that's what's on your mind, and you can go out and appreciate each and every person out there, all the rest is automatic. You don't have to think about all the individual things. They all flow into place automatically.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And what is beautiful about your ideas, Richard, to mentalism is that we can see these two things that happened at the beginning of the 20th century, that obviously mentalism started to emerge with all the classic publications and the beginnings of what we call today mentalism, right? And also a path of esoteric knowledge that is also very interested in the idea of mental magic, but not in the sense of mentalism, but in the sense of what you are also saying, that we need to truly be in that mindset to be the mentalist, not just to do mentalism. Or even we can say that we can be mentalism, right? We become, and we in a way go beyond ourselves. And in my experience, those ideas, even though for some people can be kind of crazy and whatever, I just invite anyone to just experiment, right? And I feel that for this type of ideas, obviously as anything, but we need to experience. And sadly, most quote unquote skeptics are just close-minded, in the sense that they just reject, but they don't reject by experience. They reject that just because they want to believe the rejection. But I am sure that if someone who's watching this just experiment with these ideas that Richard is saying, that I am saying, that we need to play, we need to go into the experience. And if you are bending metal, as Richard said, imagine that you are putting kind of an energy, or maybe your imagination can put another idea, but we need to go into this understanding of being, but in the sense that we are really doing the best possible. And your work is very clear in that you can do classic techniques, right? One of your iconic techniques is your version of the censor, and that's an old idea, writing something and so on. But you are doing something so beautiful with a classic technique that shows to everyone in mentalism that it's not just about your method, but it's truly about what you are offering in the experience for the audience.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate all these accolades here, Pablo,
You
making me
deserve it,
feel.
of course.
And maybe I have to come back again and again and again. No, I as you know, I love mentalism, and I think about it all the time. Even after over 50 years of performing, I still wake up in the morning thinking of stuff, or I'll think of, hey, maybe if I do it this way would be even better. Or I'll even think of something that, I wrote recently in a book, this and that is not really what I do in this routine. And maybe I need to change what I do, because
Yeah.
what I wrote in the book, I believed in. So in that little things like that, um, I'm always thinking. I'm always thinking of that. And well, one thing I could never understand: if you can't believe in magic, then why do you become a magician in the
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
um, when some of these guys I see on the internet and they want to give things away, that they want to expose the first rule in magic. And I wrote this about this recently. There's a book I had that I picked up. Whenever we go out to a yard sale or something like that, I look for books and magic kits and things like that. Whenever we go to a secondhand store, and we were at outside, and they had little tents and everything, and Lisa picked this book up for me. Okay.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and it's like, cool, and I remember like this, where it would be black and white, but part of it would be filled in with a color, and or yellow and black. I love this. This is the way books were when I was a little kid. But anyway, so I bought the book, and I was reading all the very first things. Okay. Right in the very beginning of the book, it says, never, never tell your audience how you did a trick, no matter how much they beg. As soon as they find out, all the mystery is gone. They won't even be excited about other tricks you do once they find out how simple the secrets are. This is a children's magic,
Beautiful.
and this words of wisdom here, how many grown-up magicians don't know that? Like when I see somebody, like I said, give away a secret, it's like, wait a minute. I grew up being taught, if you give away a magic secret, a society is going to come and capture you and put you in jail. It's that serious. So yeah, that's one thing I've always, that's been a pet peeve of mine. It's supposed to be the mystery arts. When you become a magician, you're supposed to be in a secret society, and you keep the secrets to yourselves and don't spread them around, and like the book says, ruin it. It's like, Pablo, one of my things that I've got a little bit of reputation for is to bend a penny. Okay, I've done that.
I remember, of course.
And and I try to explain to people, and because they're always, how do you do it? How do you do it? How do you do it? And I say, did it make you feel wonderful when you saw it? Because there seemed to be no explanation. And then at the end, you can keep it and you can hold on to it afterwards. It's like real magic, Do you know I had 2 or 3 people write books supposedly on how I did, and they're wrong. They're wrong. But the point is, why can't you enjoy that? And I've often said, if somebody would show me something like that, because of course, I know I've been doing this my whole life, it's not a whole lot of things that I can't see that I say, well, I know how that. If somebody could show me something that simple and that mysterious, I would love it. I would cherish that, to be able to see that. But that notion is removed from some people. And excuse me for making this personal like that, because I didn't want to do that. But my point is, you should love mystery. You should love mystery. You should love wanting to create it. You should love seeing it. It's just, especially in this day and age with all this technology and everything's explained, the ability to create true mystery with nothing but the mind is one. People love that. And then there are some in our profession who would destroy that. And I could never understand that. They can't, like you said, they can't understand the beauty of mentalism.
Yeah.
And that's stupid,
And I feel that the more ego a person has, the less can enjoy the beauty of others or the good of others, right? Because they didn't know myself, right? So I feel envy. I don't feel that, right? So we need to start to understand that, right? Beauty is for everyone. We don't need to try to keep everything for ourselves and being individualistic in that sense. So if anyone is enjoying something, that's great. And if any other person is a good magician or a good mentalist, enjoy and don't try to know, right? And I feel in my experience that I can easily enjoy a performance and I don't truly care how, because I don't really truly care. I care about the experience. What is the experience that this person is sharing with me? And that happens in magic, in mentalism, in music, any type of performance experience. So it's not just about which specific version of whatever I am performing, but what I am saying with this. Why this particular piece? And for example, I remember in your act, my friend, in particular in this moment in Buenos Aires, that you started with a very unique piece, right? Because they present Richard Osterlind, the master from the United States, and so on, and you did linking fingerings. Why is that? Why do you start with a magic piece?
Well, okay, I for the first time, Pablo, I may have to disagree with you. I don't think most people think of that as a magic trick, because it's just so different. With the big rings, okay, that's Chinese rings, that's a magic trick, but it's so impossible. I remember when I first bought the book Al Koran's Legacy, and was it? Yeah, I think so. And inside there's a picture of him holding the pencil with three rings linked. And I looked at it and I said, that's real magic. A picture is real magic.
Yeah.
Look at rings are linked. Whoa. And I just had to learn how to do that. And it's been my experience that even though I'm a mentalist, when I do that, people don't feel as though they've seen a magic trick. They just feel as though they've seen something impossible. Okay. I love magic. Yeah, I'll tell you, one of the best magicians I've ever seen. My friend and I were out to have dinner. He's a magician, and typical two magicians being out, there's the deck of cards, and oh, let me show you this, and look at this. And the waiter came over, and I don't know what he was. He might have been Italian or whatever, but he said, "Oh, magician, I know how to do magic." And he took a napkin, and he took, I'm trying to remember if it was a matchstick or a toothpick, and he did the broken and restored matchstick in the napkin. And I remember this was kind of funny because my friend sat there and it was like, yeah, that's nice, you know, we're magicians. You know, I know that, I've known that forever. But I sat and watched and I said, that was wonderful. That was magic. That how didn't even enter into my mind. It looks so magical, you know, so very magical. And I loved it. And how I appreciated this guy. It might have been the only thing he knew how to do. But for me, he gave me real magic that day, you know? And I think here I am talking about it many, many years later, you know, 25, 30 years later. And I still remember that, you know, whereas I've seen dozens of shows and everything. I couldn't tell you what they did, but that made such an impression on me. And the guy wasn't even a magician. He knew probably one thing. But the point is that, yeah, just like, you know, two musicians can play the same notes. One of them, it's just okay. The other is a master. You know, they're just incredible. And yeah, I mean, our art, it's an art, you know, and how you do it, the mechanics of it, the moves, the apparatus, the secret gimmicks don't really matter very much. It's how you play it, you know, how you play the art that really matters. Anyway, I keep getting off on tangents here. I'm sorry about
that. Of course. That's the idea, as we said, my friend. It's all about going wherever our mind decides. And it's funny that we said our mind, because I don't know if you feel that way, Richard, but in my experience, sometimes, as a great author that I love, says that most of the time that when we are thinking, kind of we are listening, right? We are hearing, and creativity kind of works like that. Sometimes when I am with my notes or I am consciously focusing something, sometimes in a way I feel almost like I am hearing. It's not that I am creating, but an idea is kind of passing through me, kind of like that. How is your experience with the creative aspect of mentalism?
Okay. That's really interesting. I like how you phrased that. And by the way, your new book is wonderful. Now I've read it about 4 times. You know, it's as I said in my note to you, you know, I love books where you can see into the person's mind when you read the book, and you know how they think. You know, and that's wonderful. I love that. Yeah. My life is always shortcuts. I think I said that before. If there's 2 ways to do something, I'm not saying easy necessarily, but like, for instance,
simple.
Yeah. And a lot of times I'll have a magical problem on my mind. And, you know, it's like trying to remember something and you can't grasp it. And so the best thing to do is put it out of your mind. And then maybe a little while later you can grasp it, or maybe not. Next day you can grasp, who knows? But a lot of times if I'm trying to solve a problem, I'll rack my brains out, and then I'll just say, no, go away, just forget it. And hopefully the next day, maybe I'll wake up in the morning and the answer to it, or what I was trying to achieve suddenly flows through me, as you just said to me. It's, you know, I can't explain it. Was it there and it came out, or Was it somewhere else and it came to you? I don't know. But I always, for me, always try to see things through the eyes of a normal person, an audience member. Yeah, I think you may have remembered in my lecture when I was talking in Buenos Aires, I talked about mentalists and I talk about normal people, meaning everybody else who thinks normally, because magicians and mentalists, it's hard to do, it's hard to think normally. I have to fight in my mind to think like a regular person so I would understand what they would like to see. Because I'm sure you've been through this. You get so excited about a new creation and you can't wait to do it for somebody. And you do it and you're like, whatever. And you think, but it's so good. And they, no, that's okay. And then you do something minor, just tiny, minor. And all of a sudden it's like, whoa. And so it's hard to put yourself in the right mindset as a professional to be able to see things the way a normal audience sees, so that you can give them what they want and what excites them and what makes for a good show for them. Because that's another thing. You can make a good show for you, but that's not the point. The point is a good show for them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I love also, Richard, that one of your books is not focused to performers. One of your books is for the public, right? Is how you can develop your mind. And I love that any mentalist can be able not just to perform mentalism, but even in a way explain not the secrets of the performance, but the secrets behind the true mind preparation and skills. And what is your experience with that book? How it went to come alive?
Well, I wrote that book, and and that was Mind Over Matter, I think. Was that it?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mind Over Matter. So I've written so many, I got to turn around and look at the title before I can be sure. And, I thought Kreskin has written all these books for the public. And I thought I would like to have a book for when I do shows.
Yeah.
And really, I say, here, let me give you a book and autograph it. That's my book. So it would be for them. It would not be for an entertainer. But at the same time, I didn't want it to be just a book of just baloney. I wanted it to have sincere principles in the book that means something. That if somebody read it and they got into it, they say, wow, there's some good insight here, or even some very clever ideas. And so that's how that came about. Like I said, the first thought was, I'm just going to write a book to give away at my shows to people who really enjoyed the show. But the second thought was, well, if I'm going to do that, I don't want to I want it to be something. I want it to have real meaning, so that's how that came about, A few of the things came from other books too, like the idea of writing with a fountain pen to calm yourself down. It was an idea I got a long time ago, that when I was studying handwriting analysis, and they were talking about the difference in handwriting between a person who's upset and a person who's calm. And the same person, could be, you could almost see their mood based on the handwriting. And I thought, well, let's reverse it. Maybe you could use handwriting to make yourself a calmer person. Instead of using a ballpoint pen, use a nice fountain pen and take your time to try to carefully write whatever it is you're writing, because that calms you down. That has to calm you down, because you can't do it if you're like this, then it's scratchy and and then that led to the other thought that I guess I put in there too, about noise and I guess it was something like, and excuse me if I'm a little bit off on this, but I talked about how a lot of people are at odds with their physical universe. And you can always tell such a person because they're noisy. They're noisy. Everything they do, if they have to put something down, it's noisy. Like and I came up with the idea, and I mean, I still do this all the time, that if you could go through life making as little noise as possible, you will be a calmer and happier person, because you will automatically do things like, if you're about to set your drink down, you look over and make sure where you're putting it is a good place to put it, and not like on the edge of a book because you're in a rush and you didn't pay attention and the thing tips over and now you got a big mess on your hand that you have to spend half an hour cleaning up. And that all comes from, if you're going to not make noise, well, then you have to see where you're putting it to make sure where you put it is not a noisy place. And it works. You know, I've had people come back to me and say, that's really great advice, you know. Even if you only use it on the tiniest scale, just try not to make noise. And you'll see, all of a sudden you will be a little calmer. But anyways, that's
of course, and that's in a deeper sense, that's a meditation. It's a activity of presence, right? And that's so relevant in a world in which we are always in another task, right? And sadly, there is so much anxiety in the world for the pandemic and everything. And anxiety basically is a fear of the future. And if the future doesn't happen, so we are losing the present to connect to a potential fear in the future. So
that 9 times out of 10 doesn't happen, like you say. And so,
right. So this very basic, simple, beautiful practice of understanding that calligraphy can even be a small meditation, be as silent as possible, right? Beautiful. And I also have, that's why I ask you, Richard, because I also have books for the public, and it's a beautiful experience because we are also in that type of activity, we are validating the depth of the performance, right? Because sometimes, especially for people that are starting in magic or mentalism, they over appreciate the trick, right? Because it's clever, because the gimmick is expensive and so on. But then we realize that we really need to hone skills. And sadly, so little people read this beautiful book that I love, Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends, right? It's so fundamental to learn how to be socially appealing, how to create likability, how to be quote unquote a people person that can connect the audience into the experience of mentalism. If not, we are just someone doing tricks, and that's fine, but we can do more, right? And that's kind of the awareness that your work opens, because we can do tricks. Some people just want to do a trick, okay, but if you want to take this like an art form, like a practice of even self-development, we can go into deeper aspects of mentalism.
Yes, in my cold reading book, I talk about throughout the book other normal methods of doing it, but then I also talk about ways that when you look at a person, quite often they'll remind you of somebody you already know, or they have mannerisms similar to that. And if you take the time to know the person, you know, then you can apply how they are to this person, and you'll be pretty right, because you can just tell by how they are. But then I talk about, you can walk down the street and you could just practice this skill without saying a word. just looking at people going by and reading them in your mind. Okay. But the secondary effect that has is it makes you care about people. Because when you do that, I mean, we all have good things and bad things about us. We all have problems. We all have happiness, and you run across people and and it makes you be more in tune. You have to become in tune with them. Empathy, okay? And to be a good reader, to be a cold reader. And becoming in empathy with a person that you're reading means sharing their feelings and caring and caring. Um, we should care about people. Everybody these days wants to fight and argue. And when it comes down to it, a lot of people won't admit this because they'll say they're fighting and arguing because they're right. And that's why they're fighting. But a lot of times people fight. Oh, that's why I do this. Look at that. I get I got a light and it likes my
The ring,
eyes.
yeah.
That's a neat effect.
That's your new effect. X-ray.
Doing my show. Concentrate. That would be scary. But anyways, if when you a lot of times when people argue, they really don't want to make their point. They want to hurt the other person. They want to hurt them. And that's wrong. I don't care if the person is deserving of being hurt. I don't care if the person is your enemy. You should never want to hurt them. And I see so much of that in life today where people do and say things because they want to hurt people. And if you are in empathy with somebody else and you are trying to feel what they're feeling, trying to see the world through their eyes and their emotions, if you do all that, you can't be trying to hurt them. You can't be trying to hurt them. And if you truly get in empathy with somebody, then you start feeling the things that do hurt them and you want to fix them. I mean, the idea of being a healer, I'm not talking about, being a healer in, let's say, the biblical sense where you lay hands on somebody. And I'm talking about to take a sad person and heal them and make them happy by who you are, and not necessarily by making a coin disappear or something, but who you are. You somehow, and okay, I'll get back to the word spiritual. You can spiritually heal them and touch them and move them and make them feel good and take away some of the pain that they're feeling. I often thought as a mentalist, if we're reading people's minds, okay, we all experience some very heavy duty hardships and pain. And we have loved ones who are very, very close to our wives and our children. And when you see somebody like that feeling pain, when I see one of my daughters or granddaughters or my wife crying, it rips me open. It hurts me so bad. I want to make it stop. And if you can do that with a person you've never met before, but you can somehow get to understand just from reading them some of the hurt that they're feeling. And if it hurts you too, and you want to make them feel better, that's a good thing, especially if you can make them feel better. That's a good thing. That's what I'm talking about when I say being a healer. Being a healer of sadness and turning it into some kind of joy. And that's what what else do we do? But when we perform, we say, okay, we create mystery and beauty and everything else, but we're making people happy. At least I hope we are, that's what I try to do, so.
Yeah. And I love, Richard, how do you observe this very casual interaction that we can have literally with anyone, right? And of course, that we can be a force of good and love and healing for our family, our friends. And the beautiful thing about mystery performance and the skills that we learn during the path of learning is that we can create conversation with other people. And in any casual interaction, we can sense that someone can maybe receive a little gift of surprise, right? Or a moment of mentalism, a very simple performance, maybe a pendulum experience. And I love doing that because it's so genuine. Just experience the pendulum, the power of the mind, and people love
Yep.
that. So we can open our mind of the performance, not just in the context, quote unquote, of performance, but in casual situation. We can offer an unique moment, right? And mystery performance and mentalism, magic, hypnosis, everything becomes this blessing that we can share with others. So why not? Why not?
Right. And what you just pointed out, sort of indirectly, is I've never been one to say I'm this way on stage and this way off stage.
Yeah,
I'm always the same way, on stage, off stage. That's people I know have said to me, well, you're so natural. Well, yeah, because that's me all the time. I don't change when I walk up on stage. Okay, maybe I'll project a little bit more and or try to be a little bit more commanding, but basically that's me. That's how I am off the stage, on the stage. And so you're right, what we can achieve on the stage, we can achieve all the time. It should be a joy to go out and meet people, to give you the opportunity to read them, see if you can't make them smile, pick up on something that, who knows? I don't know. I'm not saying you walk around trying to change lives, day after day after day, but every now and then, if you bring some happiness to somebody else, especially using our art and everything that we know, that's so gratifying. That's
yeah,
I've had little things happen where it was 10 times more gratifying than doing a show, with hundreds of people in the audience. Yeah, so sometimes it's the smallest things can make all the difference in the world.
exactly, my friend. And what better words to end this conversation, my friend? And before we end, let
Yeah.
me ask you where we can find the latest releases and ideas from Richard Osterlind.
Well, I thought you never asked. Of course, our uh, a number of years ago, Jim Sisti and myself, my partner, decided we're not going to sell anymore to dealers. We're only going to sell directly through our company, OsterlindMysteries.com. That's my company, OsterlindMysteries.com. And so everything that we have, we have put out books and effects, and we have some beautiful things, beautiful wooden items and all kinds of neat things. It's all there on that site, OsterlindMysteries.com. And if you go to that website, on the very first page, you can sign up for the newsletter. And then if we have something new, you'll get a newsletter to let you know. And a lot of times we offer a special savings when we introduce something new. And for right now, the newest thing that we just introduced about a week ago is something called Scribe. It's a new take on the Swami gimmick. And I'm not going to give it away or anything because we decided to keep this one, not even show a picture of it, just describe what it can do. Because there's actually a whole system. We're going to have other things coming up. But we announced it in the newsletter. And so if you're interested at all in my books or our products, I'd invite you to go there, OsterlindMysteries.com. And if it looks intriguing, please sign up for the newsletter. And then something new comes out, new book, a new prop, or whatever, you'll be notified. And a lot of times, it'll even be okay, you can get this now at this price. It's going to go up in price in a couple of weeks, but you can get it, get it for a lower price, introductory price, if you will. So, so if you like the kind of thing I do, if you had any of my books or DVDs and you think some of the stuff is good, you might want to just check it out, because I'm very proud of it all. What we have, Jim Sisty's wife, Sandra, makes incredible cloth items. And then I have a carpenter who's just incredible. He's actually a cabinet maker. So our wood things are really, really incredible. And now I've got somebody else making some things with 3D printing. So, and then there's all the books and all the DVDs and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of fun stuff to look through, and regardless of the type of performance you do, I bet somewhere in there's something that you might be able to use. So thank you for asking me and for letting me plug the website. I appreciate it.
Of course, always. I will spread the gospel of Richard Osterlind. So, my friend, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your words, your ideas, and I only expect the best blessing for you, the best health, the best ideas, creations in the mind of Richard Osterlind. Thank you very much.
And Pablo, thank you. Thank you so much for having me and for being my friend, Pablo. Thank you.
Welcome. And thank you everyone who watched this video. Have a beautiful day. Bye.